you ever given up something, even short term? Something like maybe chocolate or social drinking or binge watching your favorite TV show? Have you ever noticed when we try to give up something, we almost fixated on it more? So everything starts to look like a chocolate bar, or we've got to walk away if one of our coworkers starts talking about the show that they were watching last night. The yearning and the desire even seem to get greater the more we're trying to get rid of our area. So people start asking us, how's your day? And instead of giving them the normal rundown, what we say is things like, day 3, no sugar, thought I was going to die. Or we say things like, oh, it's going great, but if I have to go through one more work dinner without a glass of wine, you may have to bail me out of jail. So we start to have the yearning and the desire to seem to be greater. Why do we do this? Are we physically addicted to those things? Potentially. But more likely, it's because when we try to give up something, we end up thinking and dialoguing about it so much. It's not logical. We wouldn't recommend this behavior to anyone else. An effective coach is going to tap his wide receiver on the back and say, get out there and just keep telling yourself, don't drop that ball. We'll get back to him in a second. So as a behaviorist, I watch people, what they do and how they do it. And then my job is to help folks make sense out of their behavior and oftentimes the behavior of others. From an organizational health perspective, this tends to look like focusing on helping individuals and organizations meet professional goals that they have. Well, this sounds pretty good, right? Who doesn't want a little bit of help meeting their goals? But interestingly, over the years, as I work with leaders and personnel, what I see is a behavior pattern that does not scream, yes, change, we're moving in a direction. Instead, I get comments like, wow, this is going to be difficult, or this is going to take some time. And then that's usually followed by a heavy dose of avoidance, because they're really busy. They just can't get around to it right now. Or delegation to anyone that walks by, because this will indeed be an amazing professional growth opportunity for them. Or folks will jump into the change, but do so unprepared. And as a result, the desired outcomes aren't met, which then in turn reinforces the notion that change is difficult and difficult is bad. In my opinion, productive change requires difficulty and difficult conversations. Think about it. Nobody says, oh, it's so difficult to go tell that person they're doing a great job and to keep it up. Of course not, because that doesn't ask for change. It's saying, stay as you are. But difficult conversations can be pretty exciting when you wrap it around change. So let's think about when we see people make big changes in their lives. What do? Buying your first house. Certainly not an easy process, but when people are done, they usually have a pretty good sense of satisfaction from it. Having a child. There's nothing easy about having a child, but we see parents leap tall buildings in a single bound to make sure that they have healthy, well-adjusted kiddos. Changing your lifestyle to reduce your risk for type 2 diabetes. Not easy, but again, the reward is great. In each of those examples, there's pivotal moments when the vision is clear. Folks know what they want and what they're going to do to get that. And so around that, they're focused on the change and not the challenge. But think about how we usually approach difficult conversations. We usually think about it as getting rid of something, reducing something, like my previous examples. So employee breaks are too long, production waste is too high, client complaints are too high. And so when we do that, what we're focusing on is what's not working, and it's pretty hard to get your head wrapped around and get excited about working on what's not working, as opposed to what might be working. Behaviorists for years have known that the key to behavior change is identifying a replacement behavior or a replacement goal. Where am I going? There's tons of science behind this. It's logical when we think about it, but it's highly underutilized. So let's go back to our chocolate example. I can fixate on not having chocolate. Or I can say, what's my replacement goal or behavior? And what am I focused on? Well, if my goal is to find a healthy alternative to my sugar intake, then I'm going to focus on what I can have. Is it a bowl of fruit, or what is it? Where am I going with this? If my goal is to reduce my sugar intake in general, and I want just something that's more balanced in my diet, I might focus on unsalted nuts or something like that. It gives me some protein, some good fats. But the point is I need to know what I want to make that change. So where do I want to go? And that will help me focus. The wide receiver. You don't want to drop the ball? Well, what do you want to do? Sports psychologists work with many amazing athletes on this concept. What is it you want to do? I want to catch the ball. I don't want to drop it. So I'm going to say it, I'm going to think it, I'm going to see it, and I'm going to go ahead and do it. Imagine being called into a meeting, and the concept is we need to reduce production waste. Well, that's exciting, right? And so that meeting is going to be doomed for the first, 5 of those meetings. But if you wrap it around, a more efficient business model or more efficiencies. You can't waste if you're being efficient. Now I can wrap my head around a positive goal, and more people are going to want to be part of that experience. So once we now have our heads wrapped around this notion of embracing the change and not the challenge, how do we get there? Well, social learning theory tells us that our behavior is based on observation and instruction. And so for most people, I try to create a framework to wrap your head around this for application based on B.F. Skinner's work and others that say, yeah, you acquire behavior. Behaviors are observed, they're trained, and they're conditioned. So what do I mean by that? Observed. Well, that's that modeling, that thing where we watch people. Our mirror neurons in our brain allow us to watch and do. So imagine that I could spend time with business owners that also have high production waste issues, or I can spend time with business owners that have very high efficiency business models. That is where I would like to be. Instruction. This is that trained model. Behavior is trained. All that means is how are you taught? This can be anything from how your grandpa taught you to use a hammer to providing professional development opportunities for your team around the notion of efficiencies, so that when you get to work, everybody can wrap their head around it conceptually and get going. Behavior is conditioned. Well, that's the culture. Think about that as how does the culture that you're in reinforce the goals and objectives that you want to get to? So again, these are examples of sort of, is the work environment, the assignments that I'm given, and the objectives I'm asked to achieve oriented around these goals? In this example that I've been giving, maybe it's about more efficiencies, right? What I find is that when people look at this notion of behavior change around these frameworks, what they find is the organization not only achieves its goals, higher efficiency, but the people in that organization grow, and they develop, and then it moves you to those next steps. So when we view difficult conversations of how do we change our behavior, and thinking about it as a replacement behavioral goal, and the notion of behaviors observed, trained, and conditioned, what we find is difficult conversations lead to growth. And as leaders in our families, our work environment, our communities, our relationships, we've got a choice. We can either inspire the challenge, the angst, the avoidance, the worry, or we can inspire the change, which is that authentic engagement and the growth and the drive of those around us to create the change that we're looking for. Thank you.